Hello and welcome to Northeast Ohio Media Group and the Plain Dealers live wine tasting show. I'm Denise Polverine. Tonight we're with an esteemed panel of wine experts who will take us through about the next 45 minutes or so tasting some great wines. And we're trying something new this time. Our engagement expert Amanda Harnotes is live at a party in Cleveland, a wine tasting party. It was a group of people who got together and said, hey, we want to do this. And of course, the show is really all about you. We're doing this so that you can ask questions about wine, wine pairings, Cabernets tonight, and anything that you have on your mind about this topic. Post in the comments section below. You're watching the live stream right now. Just scroll down and post your questions there, and we'll get to as many as possible during the show. Well, making up our panel here in studio, beginning on the end is Plain Dealer beer and wine columnist Marc Bona, Susan DeCarlo of Regency Wine Bar and Retail Store in Fairlawn, and right next to me, David Sterle of Vintage Wine Distributor. As I said, tonight we're tasting 3 Cabernets, and I'd like to start with Marc. Marc, tell us which one you selected and why.
Well, I chose Estancia, and the reason why is kind of a different reason. It's not because I've ever had it before. I haven't. Matter of fact, I haven't had any of these 3. The parameters that we gave our expert guests were top out at $20, stick to California and Cabernet Sauvignons. It's a very good food wine in general. About a month ago, I reviewed 3 California Pinot Noirs. One of them was Estancia, and it really blew me away. It really surprised me. Estancia is a very large production winery, and as such, you see it in a lot of menus, a lot of restaurants, and a lot of bars. And because of that, I usually just kind of skip it and pass it by. But I was blown away by the Pinot, and I thought, you know what? If you can make a good Pinot in California, you probably are going to be making a very good Cabernet Sauvignon as well. So that's why I chose the Estancia. Susan?
I chose the Contado Mancos. I think it's a very nicely made wine. It's got great balance, nice fruit, nothing's over the top, good acidity, little minerality, and it comes from a very interesting area called the Susan Valley. It's a little east of Napa. It's the soil is sedimentary rock. It's a valley that sits below a couple mountain ranges. There's a bay nearby, so it's kind of got a coastal climate, nice, wet, cool climate, and it makes really nice, elegant cabs.
Great.
Excellent.
Right. David?
Yes, I chose the Rutherford Ranch Cabernet Sauvignon for a myriad of reasons, but really the first reason that I chose it was really for value, bang for the buck. It is from one of the most prestigious wine growing appellations in Napa Valley in California, Rutherford, AVA. They're known for their gravelly, sandy, loamy soils with volcanic soils blended in as well. And there's a name called Rutherford dust. It's actually a proprietary characteristic of the terroir or the soil. You can actually tell in the aromatic components of the wine as well. And another reason I chose them, besides of having really well-established blackberry, fruit, vanilla spice on the aromas, they are certified sustainable. So I think it's important to recognize that as well, and I hope you'll enjoy.
All right, great. Marc, tell us a little bit about this wine that you're pouring right now. I know this is Susan's wine, is that right?
Right. Well, I mean, Susan touched on a few things about the geographic area, and that geography is so important to wine. California has, a lot of places in the world have this, but there's a term, if you really want to get into wine, you have to understand a little bit about, actually a lot about weather. And California has a lot of microclimates. So this valley that Susan was talking about, just east of Napa, and everybody has heard of Napa and Sonoma and that area, but it's kind of got a little bit of a protection in a sense from some of the winds and some of the weathers, and just in general, it's got a little protection. But the shift in temperature in California can be, on a given day, a typical day can go 40 degrees easy. So in the morning, you can get a lot of fog, it's very cool. That affects grape growing a certain way. By the end of the day, you can end up having, it's warm, that fog burns off. That again touches on how the grapes are grown. David, I know you know a little bit about the agricultural aspect. Being a sommelier,
Sure.
You have to figure this out. You may want to touch on this, or Susan.
Sure, absolutely. In talking about the Estancia really particularly as well, there's a appellation called Paso Robles, which is in Monterey County, further south down from Napa. Excuse me, the precise appellation that the Estancia Cabernet comes from is an area called Keys Canyon. And a lot of the canyons actually act as funnels that take the cool air from the Pacific and drag them inland, because Paso Robles is fairly far inland where it gets extremely hot. And Mark was talking about the diurnal shift or climatic shift that can well exceed 40 degrees in a given day. And that fog and the cool ocean air really comes in at the end of the day to really cool down the grapes, kind of stop the ripening, so it doesn't overextend itself really into that. And it really, you really tell in the wine as well, having that shift, really powerful, elegant fruit flavors with nice acidity as well coming from the cooler climate. So they're not flabby or overdone. You have that acidity that also is a great element to have when pairing with food as well, and pleasant to drink without it even.
Susan, we're watching Mark kind of swirl his wine, take a little sniff of it. Tell us a little bit about a wine tasting. There are some mechanics of it that we should know about.
Well, there are things you're looking for when you are tasting a wine. You're looking for the color. Color can indicate age, youth or age, depending on how bright it is. Older wine will have a rim around that's a little darker burgundy. Sometimes it will be a brick color. So that gives you some information about the wine. Then you want a swirl, which releases the aromatics of the wine. And it gives you an indication of some of the fruit, different smells you might get. You might get leather or smoke, cedar, and finally you want to taste.
Fun part.
What are you smelling in this one before we taste it?
I'm getting a hint of cherry, a little bit in the nose.
I definitely get that. I get a little bit of cigar box cedar, a little bit also too of maybe a brown baking spice, maybe nutmeg or a little bit of allspice as well.
Some nice blackberry fruits.
All right, I'm going to make you hold off one more second because we are going to go live to the party right now. And Amanda, as I said, Amanda Harnotes with Northeast Ohio Media Group is at a wine tasting party in Cleveland. And Amanda, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, great. Tell us a little bit of, yes?
Well, Tiffany Howell here at Howell has graciously invited me to her home and invited her friends. So we're all tasting the first wine right now, and seems like the reaction is that it pairs well with the cheese that I bought, which is a Gouda and a blue cheese. So, what do you think of the wine?
Nice.
It's light. I like it. It's very, has a little bit of a finish. They can feel over here in your jaw like a little bit of a bitterness, but not too much. And it's pretty good.
Yeah, the first one's pretty good here.
All right, great, thanks. We'll come back to you. Now I'm going to let our panel of experts finally taste this. And as you're doing so, just kind of describe what you're tasting, please.
Excellent.
All right, and you know, as Susan was telling us, there's a real process here in wine tasting. If you could tell us a little bit, before you begin telling us about the taste, what about the legs? Tell us a little bit about that.
Legs are typically an indication of alcohol or sugar.
Okay.
The higher the alcohol content and the higher the sugar, the bigger the legs you're going to have. You know, it's viscosity basically, and as it runs down the glass. Now this is not a real high alcohol wine. It's 13.9, and you can see it's got some kind of delicate legs.
Okay.
Doesn't have a lot of. It's not sweet.
If you ever serve or sniff cognac or brandy in a snifter, the legs or the tiers are thinner and they're faster, and of course the alcohol is a lot higher as well.
Right.
All right, why don't you describe what you're tasting?
Sure. The wine actually, I think probably because of the appellation, it tastes like it sees some pretty extended periods of warmth. To me, I really almost tastes to me like almost like a Rhone varietal. It's very intense fruit, very concentrated. I do get a little bit of passion fruit, a little bit of unripe raspberry, definitely almost a little bit of a hint of mulberry as well. So it's very complex, I think, as far as the red and black fruits are. And but the concentration of flavor, how it makes you salivate, it's really it's lighter as far as on the mouth feel, but it has so much concentration of flavor. It's very pleasing to drink, and you want to go back to it.
This is why David's a sommelier, because I'm getting dark fruit.
Yeah. I
Good
think-
fruit.
I think the nice thing about this wine is it's a bit of an easy drinker. You know, it could pair well with food because of the acidity and minerality, but it would be a nice, easy sipping wine as well.
The fruit comes off, but it's a good thing not to equate fruity with sweet. This is clearly a fruit-forward wine. I'm guessing medium-bodied, but I really don't think it's sweet at all. And I think it's a really good drinker.
Yeah, it's got nice silky tannins, good acidity, a little bit of minerality, which might come from the sedimentary rock that you find in the Susan Valley.
Before we give a little taste to some of the food that we have someone in the chat room, Clee Wine Guy, saying, why did we pick 3 wines of the same varietal? And I don't think we touched on that because during our last wine tasting, we had a white, a rosé, a red. So why, Mark or David, did you think that going with 3 cabs was a good idea? And also, is that more common in wine tastings?
I think a wine, well, in terms of whether it's common, I think you can do whatever you want. I don't think there's a set rule, this isn't right and this isn't wrong. We chose it because it's one thing, sometimes when I review wine, it's nice to be able to have 3 of the same varietals from 3 different continents. But other times, not only will I choose 3 from California, but California has such distinctive regions, again, based on the weather. So you've got 2 main regions in California, the North Coast, which is a sliver of about 7 to 10 counties, I want to say, right from the northern border of California straight down to north of San Francisco. And under that, you've got this chunk of land called the Central Coast. But it's amazing. You can even have, we've chosen 3 different vineyards here, obviously 3 different wineries. There are other times you can have a wine, same varietal, same winemaker, from just, the only difference would be 10 minutes apart, 2 different vineyards, you're going to get drastically different taste. This is where it's good to have just being armed with a little bit of knowledge is a good thing. When you learn about, we're talking about the terroir, we're talking about the weather, it's absolutely amazing in places like California where 10 minutes apart can bring out drastically different flavors.
Go
I
ahead.
was going to say really quick, what Mark reminded me of something actually. What's amazing about wine production and grapes themselves, if you think about strawberries or blueberries being grown in different areas, or Michigan versus Ohio, maybe a slight difference in maybe the taste of a berry, but it's pretty much a blueberry. It's going to taste like a blueberry. But with the grape, it's amazing how the same grape, genetically, the same varietal, can taste a million different ways in a million different appellations and terroirs and climate influence, and even winemaking styles have a lot of variance as far as their stylistic approach to making wine of the same varietal from the same appellation. So it's fascinating. That's one of the greatest parts of being involved with wine is really that. It's amazing.
Some of the folks in the chat room are asking, what is the availability of this wine? They're really enjoying it.
Susan, I'm going to kick that one to you because you chose this one, so I think you know a little
Well,
bit more about that.
They make there's plenty available. They only make about 736 cases though, so it's not a really large production wine, but it is available at a number of shops, mine included, but in some, I think a lot of our viewers might be in the Cleveland area too, so I can't speak to Cleveland. But I think that if you go to your local wine shop and say, this is the wine I'm interested in, I'd like to get some, I'm sure that they will happily, it's distributed by Traderman Distributors. So if you go to your local wine shop and tell them, you're interested, I'm sure they'd be happy to order it for you.
Okay, great. That's a good tip. All right, let's try some of the food. What do you suggest here, Mark?
We'll start with the cheese with the first one. And really, I have to say this, all of the food that we're having today, we've got an aged Gouda, we've got a little baguette, we've got soprasata, which is a cured dried salami from Italy, and chocolate decadence dessert, which just sounds good.
Why not?
Really, I think all 3 will go with any of the wines. We're just going to move in kind of a natural order and start with the cheese.
Okay. At the party right now, they're having some Gouda as well, and they're really enjoying it and saying that it works well. So you had a certain taste to the wine before. What are you noticing different after you've tasted some of the Gouda?
I think that the wine really pulls out the aged part of the Gouda. It pulls out a little nuttiness, earthiness to it. The fruit being really concentrated and almost syrupy, just delicious. It really pushes out that aged flavor of the Gouda for me.
I only have one rule about when I'm interested in tasting a particular food item with wine. I always taste the wine first, and because then you go to the food and then go back, and then you can have a comparison and contrast to see. To me, it loses. I mean this in a good way. It loses a little bit of the fruit. It's drying out a little bit, and I like that. To me, that means this wine is very good with food.
Absolutely.
It balances out the creaminess of the cheese, because this is, I
Better
would
put,
consider it a creamy, richer cheese. And the wine cuts it a little bit.
What other cheeses would you recommend with this? It looks like they're having some blue cheese as well at the party. Is that something that you would recommend, or is that too strong for this?
You're a food guy. What do you think?
Sure. I think that blue cheese, I think depending on where it's from, maybe Maytag Blue from the United States, or maybe even a Stilton. Roquefort might be a little over the top, but I love blue cheese and red wine. And Cabernet's a great pairing.
Yeah,
How about you, Susan? But I really enjoy that
I do
as
too.
well.
I think if you've ever had a smoked blue,
Yep.
I think that goes really nice.
The
picks up
Fontina
on-
is great too. Semi-soft or semi-aged Italian cheese would be great with that as well. Fontanella, Fontina as well.
All right, we are going to go live to the party one more time here. We're going to try to do it after each tasting, so you guys can continue enjoying the rest of that, or get ready for your new one here. But we are going to go live to the party. Amanda, what did the group think? What did the gang think of that first one?
What do you guys think?
All right.
Tiffany said earlier that she's not usually a fan of cabs, but she said that she enjoyed this.
I did. I thought it was more of a sweeter Cabernet to me. Usually I like Pinot Noirs, and that's high on the red scale as I go.
Very nice.
So
All right, well, that's
overall,
good.
we all enjoyed the first.
All right, great. We will come back to you after we taste wine number 2. All right? Okay, great. We're going to move on here to the next cab. Mark has already poured this. Tell us which one this is, Mark.
This is the Estancia. So this is the one I chose. It's from the Central Coast. Again, all these wines are pretty much in the same range of alcohol. They're all under 14. I think this is about 13 and a half, I want to say. And like I said, the winemaker did a brilliant job with the Pinot, and that's a way more finicky grape than Cabernet Sauvignon. So I'm guessing this is going to be good, but this is a first for me.
All right, and describe, David, as you're kind of tasting and swirling again, what you're doing with this one specifically, and just kind of walk us through your process here.
Sure. Actually, well, I'll bring my napkin up actually too. The first thing I like to do is first look at the clarity of the wine. If you're tilting it towards you on, I guess what would probably be a 60, 70 degree angle, you can see how the light really bounces off the top of the wine. And that could tell you if a wine's filtered or unfiltered. If it's filtered, it'd be a little cloudier. You can rate it bright, star bright, brilliant. I think this wine is bright, day bright. And then I'd like to also pour it over, hold it over something white, a white piece of paper or a tablecloth, but be careful, you don't want to spill it on there. But what that does is you get a chance to really see the core versus the rim, the color density. If you look here, Diane, you see a dark garnet fading to a light magenta rim, and that gives, like Susan was saying earlier, it gives varietal characteristics. And it can be kind of tricky too. For instance, Nebbiolo, which is the grape of Piedmont, Barolo, it looks like either a really oxidized Burgundy or almost a port wine. It has an orangish edge, but that's all specific to the varietal. So it's another way of discovering that as well.
All right, Susan, what are you finding there?
I'm getting some nice fruit. This has a good amount of acidity, which is nice, which makes it a great food wine.
Absolutely.
Especially with something that's maybe creamy or fatty, like a nice fatty meat, a great piece of steak. It's going to go well.
Absolutely.
I'm getting, compared to the first one was, the fruit hit you right away. The dark fruits, David was specific about a few things that he was getting, and you got that right away. This one, I'm getting kind of a dryness first, and then the fruit kind of creeps up on you, and it's kind of nice.
It's almost like definitely like a dark currant flavor, more earthiness to maybe a little
It
bit, but
does
it has
have
that
some
drier
earthiness, some
on the end.
nice,
We
getting some terroir.
We have a question from someone named 50 Shades of Grape. This person says that they've been finding that California winemakers are making cabs that are much more approachable when young, as opposed to the old school philosophy of making a wine that you have to lay down for 10 years or so. Let's talk about that, dear. You're finding them more approachable, these California wines?
I'd say generally, yeah. In my experience lately with winemaking, I think that has something to do with the terroir and the climate. Basically, what really contributes to an age-worthy wine is acidity. That's why Rieslings, especially drier style Rieslings, it kind of sounds crazy, but those can age for 50 years, and you wouldn't think that. Mm-hmm. But I think that's part of it too. I think that in California being a warmer climate, I think that they typically don't age as long maybe as a cooler climate. But I think that the producers are making a lot of wine lately that are ready to drink and consumer friendly.
And I think also more people are drinking wine. I mean,
Correct.
we, a few years ago, for the first time, exceeded consumption. We're over France. Mm-hmm. Now, granted, we have many more people, but still, we're drinking more. So we're drinking through it. So
I think that
point.
is 100% correct. I think that's exactly what's going on. And I was interviewed on Ed Flash Ferentz's radio show on Saturday, and I made the point that there is I've said this before, but this is probably the best time to be a wine drinker because of all the global connections in the world. We are a global marketplace. So now we're getting not only wines that grapes we've never heard of half the time for a novice drinker, but we're also getting wines from other countries. So it's not just France and Italy, it's Chile, it's all, South America is just doing an amazing job. New Zealand has opened up in the last 15 years and they've done a great job. And you're getting more, and I agree with Susan. I mean, people are drinking. And I also think it's, part of the reason we're doing this tasting, and we've now done a couple, is just because the whole point is to demystify wine. It's not something to be snobbish about. It's not something to do for a status symbol. It's to do because you like it and because there's a lot out there. And most importantly, it is affordable right now. I mean, it really wasn't difficult to find 3 good cabs under $20.
right.
And are these all under 20? Is that what you're saying?
I think we capped out right at 20, I think, with the Contado.
Okay. We have a question. Kyle is asking, he said, given the general lack of information on a wine label or limited, is there a way to identify how a wine is going to taste when at the store? Is there, a good description that you can go by, something that you should look for, a little keyword, things like that?
I think you want to defer to your wine shop. I think that you want to get to know, find somebody locally in your area and shop with them and let them get to know your palate and buy a few wines, come in, talk, try to express yourself, what you're interested in, what you like, and you develop a relationship. And that person is really instrumental in helping you develop your palate and choose the right wine.
That's a great point.
For you.
Absolutely. I think too, just a real side note too, is that do some experimentation. Try some single varietals from 3 different appellations like we're doing today. And some of these appellations are very distinct, like a Napa Cab will not taste like a cab from the left bank of France or the right bank of France. So I think that if you have some fun while doing it, you'll actually calibrate your palate and kind of remember that next time you're in a store, you might see something from France. Okay, I know it's going to be a little dry cherry, not quite as much big raspberry or bramble fruit versus Napa.
And look up tasting notes. Get online, explore the wine that you've bought. Do a little research or ask your wine shop. Get some notes and read them because the more familiar you become with terms, the easier it will be for you to discuss
I agree
the
with that.
wine and express what you're tasting.
Although I will say some of the taste, there's a lot of people at a lot of wineries who really have their thesauruses out when they're coming up with some crazy descriptions. But that's okay. I mean, I read one book recently that basically said, have a tasting party and try to come up with the most outlandish ways to describe a wine. I think that's a good thing. I think there's 2 points to answer the question, and part of it is exactly what Susan said. I think you need to taste, you need to experiment, and you need to read. Michael Steinberger, an author, recently wrote a really, really easy, approachable book called The Wine Savant. It's kind of funny, it's neat, and one of his points is exactly what Susan said. Have a relationship with your wine bar owner, your wine store owner. They are knowledgeable people. They know what goes with what. They know what your price point is, what you're looking for. They can really help you with that. But also, don't be intimidated. Give it a shot. Try things. If you just give it a shot, if it's within your price point, why not? The biggest thing here, I think, and I'm a huge believer in this, restaurants and bars more and more are doing flights. So a flight is anywhere from 3 to 5 glasses with about 2 ounces, about that much in a glass. You can taste either several of the same varietal. You can taste different ones. You can compare and contrast. It's just a wonderful way to get knowledgeable and to learn a little bit more about wine.
Absolutely.
Well, just looking in here, it looks like the folks who have joined us tonight are eating really well. There's venison, truffle pot pie, a variety of cheeses and meats. It sounds really...
We do have truffle, though, in West Point.
We do.
That's going to be great.
We do. So we are going to, while you take a bite of the next piece of food, I am going to go again to the party. And we want to know what they think of this second wine, this Estancia, and also what they're pairing with it. Amanda?
I'd just like to point out that we have, what are these?
They're porcini mushroom tartlets. I don't know if they heard.
Porcini mushroom tartlets.
Wow, that sounds great.
That'd be phenomenal with this.
That would be.
They said that that's a very good idea, great pairing there. So what do you guys think, Amanda?
So Shane told me just before we started that he loves cabs, so I was going to have him explain whether he liked the first one or the second one better.
Perfect.
Yes, I am a very huge fan of the Cabernets, and I actually do prefer this one over the first. I just feel like it goes down a little bit smoother. I enjoy the nice little fruity aftertaste with it, and I've never tried this one before. This is absolutely one I would purchase, serve at my upcoming fall parties and whatnot. So,
Thank you.
All right, that sounds great. It sounds like they're having a good time at the party and eating some great food. You know, I'm seeing more food in here in the comment section that people are talking about, and it looks like everybody's having a good time. Make sure you post your questions. Again, we do have someone in here saying that statistics are showing that Generation Y is drinking more wine per capita, and that kind of goes back to what you were saying, Susan, that we are drinking a lot of wine, and we're enjoying it quite a bit, and we're finding it very drinkable and nice to pair with foods. Tell us about what you each tasted and what you thought.
I didn't get as much of a change eating the sopressata that I did with the first wine and the cheese. Maybe I'm off on that, but I didn't get a lot. It's not bad. It's very good, but I wasn't getting a lot of different flavors. Did you guys get anything else?
I definitely got a little spicy blueberry before. When I first tasted the wine, I definitely had a little more of that black or red currant. After having the sopressata and the meatiness and a little bit of the fattiness of that really pushed a spicy blueberry or blue fruit note to me out of it. So it changed it a little bit, but not probably as drastic as the first one. So yeah, it was very nice though.
Yeah, I'm going to say for me, to be honest, I don't think it's the best pairing.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the taste and the flavor is so strong in the sopressata that
What would you have with this cab?
Yeah, what are some recommendations? Yeah.
I think any meat any meat, salami tends to be a very strong flavor. I think any pork, any beef,
Short ribs,
cooked in a variety of
Braised.
sauces would go really good. I think personally salami is a tough one.
I think even something, Denise, like a wild mushroom ragu would be nice as well. If you want to
that'd
do
be
something
fantastic.
without meat, maybe, with
Yeah,
earthiness to it as
mushrooms
well.
definitely are wonderful with cabs.
And I have to say, even though I'm a beer guy, I mean, this clearly, my number one mantra is drink what you like with what you like. But I am one of the few people I know who will not drink beer with pizza. I love red wine with pizza. Unless you get into some crazy toppings. I just reviewed a wine that I had hot peppers that ruined the wine, but everything else is fine. I mean, a meat sauce, a red sauce on a pizza with the cheeses, with not a lot of pepper on it is fantastic with red wine.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think sometimes people think that there are food pairings that are very specific, but I think really there's more variety in pairings than you realize.
At the party, they just posted a comment and said that the consensus there is that everyone at the party will drink red wine with anything.
Right.
So,
It's not a bad drink.
and then we have someone, Jessie says that she got some black currant notes and black cherry notes when trying the Estancia. Is that accurate? Do you feel that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
Definitely.
Very
all right,
nice.
great. Okay, I think we are ready to move on to our third wine this evening. And as you're pouring, Mark, again, remind us which one this is, please.
This is the Rutherford Ranch. This is the one David chose.
Thank you very much.
All right, David, just as a little refresher, just a couple highlights on this wine.
Okay, this wine particularly, I'd start with the appellation or where it's from, which is Rutherford Appellation, excuse me. The Rutherford Appellation really is in the heart of Napa Valley. It sits between the Mayacamas Mountain Range and the Silverado Trail. Again, we're referring to Rutherford dust, which really is a unique minerality that you get out of this wine from the gravelly, sandy, and volcanic soil. So it's really, well, I should say Cabernet Sauvignons in this appellation are very unique as far as the terroir is concerned. I really like the wine. It has a lot of big blackberry fruit, a little vanilla spice from a bit of the French oak that it is aged in for 14 months. I think it's very value driven for $18.99. It's a great price point for a really well-structured, pretty beefy Cabernet Sauvignon, and the winery is 100% certified sustainable, which I think is important. And we're seeing a lot more of that now as well, as far as taking care of the earth and really making sure we have these wines for generations hopefully to come. So, just very briefly.
All right, great. Mark, what are you smelling there? What do you?
What am I smelling? You're putting me on the spot. A little bit of spiciness, maybe just a little bit. Not
current.
Yeah, it's not as much of a dark fruit bomb that you get in a lot of good cabs.
Absolutely.
In the chat room, they're saying that they had opened some of the wines. They tasted them right away, then let them decant for about a half hour.
Great idea.
And really noticed a difference. Tell us a little bit about that. Why does that happen?
Well, it's interesting you asked that because several months ago I did a story on decanting, and my main source in the story was this man here. And he's really knowledgeable about that. Decanting a wine opens it up. One of the things I learned from talking to David is one of the byproducts of it is you blow off a little bit of alcohol. When you do that, the flavors just seem to emerge. When you have a really big wine, I guess the term that's used is tight. If a wine is tight, you taste it and it's nice, it's fine, it's kind of light actually. But if you just letting a little bit of air come in at that time and letting it breathe for a while, opens up, the flavors get a chance to kind of pop out a little bit. Is that about right?
Absolutely. It's a chance to develop really, not so much in the glass, but really with the contact of oxygen, it really just kind of separates and scatters, I guess, the esters, for lack of a better term. But absolutely right on point. It really is it's very important.
Yeah,
to
it's a
oxygenate.
living organism. It
Absolutely.
Evolves. And eventually with, the influx of too much oxygen over a period of time, it
Bad thing.
deteriorates. But the thing that's really interesting is to do exactly that, to try it when you open it, let it sit for a half an hour, try it, and try it the next day and see. It's an interesting exercise.
We've seen different tools too. You go to Bed Bath & Beyond and you have aerators and all things like that. What do you recommend? What is the best way to do that? Or can you mix it up a little bit with a fork? There are a bunch of people who do different things to get it aerated there.
What do you think?
Well, you can pull out your old KitchenAid blender and go for that. But
That's the new.
Shake it up in the bottle. I mean,
and that's something
That's
that
it.
I think it's Nathan Mirvold who actually, just to keep it brief, he was a chief of technology for Microsoft, and he got into molecular gastronomy. He wrote a book on that, a very famous book, and one of the components in that book actually was we called hyperdecanting. And I've never tried it because it just breaks my heart to throw in my 2005 Pouilliac in a blender. It's like I said in the article with Mark, it's like throwing a family member or your dog. Like, I just can't do that. I love wine so much.
Right.
But I think that the Venturi is very popular, and it does suck in some oxygen and kind of does a nice job at that. But I like just taking it. If I'm going to decant it, I just pour it into a pitcher and pour it back in the bottle. That works well for me.
So that works well.
It's simple, but it gets the job done. And a lot of times I don't like to decant. I like to do it in the glass. You can really enjoy it. Take your time with it.
What do you think about that, Susan?
take the time. I think decanting is necessary for a lot of wines. And I think that you want to give it time. A lot of people are in a hurry. Give it time to breathe, because it's happened to me. There's so many times when I've gotten down to the end of a bottle, it's like, oh my God, this is spectacular. Why did I rush it? So take the time. And aerators work well, but just plan ahead a little bit and take the time to decant. It makes a difference. And different wines take different times too. This is going to be fabulous in an hour. Maybe a Barolo needs
Several
12 hours, you know, or overnight. Or some California cabs. I just had a Frog's Leap 2007. It was fabulous the next day.
The next day.
Great.
Okay.
Great point.
You know, you're talking about the next day. Not that anyone should ever leave a wine for the next day, a bottle of wine for the next day, but if you do, what really is the longest you should do that? I mean, a day or two? Can you leave them, you know, out for a couple of days? What's the guidance there?
Great question.
I have no idea because wine doesn't last overnight in my house.
That's the catch. I think that, you know, you can leave it out for a day. If you're going to leave it out, though, I mean, take the cork out of the bottle. I'd even just leave it in the fridge if you're going to leave it over for a couple of days, because you don't really want it to, what we call matterize or cook if it's too warm or over-oxygenate. I think, too, sometimes if you can't too long, especially in a wine that's older, you're going to miss a lot of those aromas that are going to escape pretty quickly, because the wine already has exposure to oxygen through the cork.
Yeah, I think it's important to know the wine. You have to know a little bit about wine
Absolutely.
to know,
Which
how
variety.
long to leave it. And you're absolutely right. Putting something in the refrigerator slows down the molecular degeneration.
So you can do that, and then just before you drink it,
Yeah,
set it
20
out for a
minutes,
while.
pull it out, pour it in your glass, yeah, and it'll hold. But most wines, you give it 2 days. Some will go 3.
2 days
but-
max, but that doesn't
Yeah.
happen at the Bona household, so. All right, tell me what you're going to eat with this one, please.
We're going to try Chocolate Decadence from West Point Market. This has got dark chocolate inside, but it's got a cocoa shell. And cocoa lends itself pretty well to red wines. There's different trains of thought on this, but I think chocolate in general goes well with red wine. I can't tell you why, but it just seems to go very well, and my wife would sing the praises of that.
Especially dark chocolate, right?
All right, while you guys are tasting, we're gonna, for the last time, jump over to the party in downtown Cleveland, where folks have gathered to join us for this wine tasting, and we're curious to see what they're doing and what they think so far. Amanda, can you hear us? Amanda?
Hi there. Sorry,
Hi.
a little bit of a delay. I'm with Jesse. This is his home as well, and with his wife Tiffany. And he's tried all 3 wines, and he is going to share which one he prefers.
The second one beat out the first, in my opinion, but then after having the third, I think I'm going to give the third wine, the Rutherford, my first choice. From a complexity standpoint, not overly complex, but I kind of like that. Picked up on some plum notes and tended to be the smoothest with roughly medium finish. So this one suits me the best.
All right, anyone else at the party, Amanda, have an opinion on what they've had to drink or the food that has gone with it?
I think that we enjoyed everything, the food, the wine, the company. I think that the consensus here was that everyone would buy any of the 3 wines and serve them at another party. So great job picking these out. And just want to thank Tiffany and Jesse for having us here. It was really generous of them to open up their home and host a party.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely, thank you.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Wow, all right, thanks, guys. Looks like they're having a good time. I'm sure they'll continue to have a good time for a while. Next time I say we all go there. But they're saying that they did taste a little bit of blackberry. Some of the folks in the chat room, is that accurate as well? Some stronger berries like that?
I think so.
All right, tell me what you tasted. You had a little bit of the truffle. What do you think afterward?
Dries out. It just dries out the wine. It almost makes you pucker a little bit, and it just dries out. It's just this amazing chemical reaction in your mouth.
I think it's the best pairing.
I think it works very well.
I really do.
think it does
The
too.
bitterness of the chocolate and the dust, that dust that you talked about is beautiful.
It's funny you said that, because I like that talking about dust too, it's like the Rutherford dust versus the cocoa powder too, in a way,
Yeah.
so an edible version of that. But yeah, I
Yeah,
get a lot,
exactly.
it pulls that like pomegranate beam of fruit down the middle of your palate after having that dark chocolate. It really just screams for me, actually, so.
Anything else that would go really well with this wine? What else should people consider when they buy the Rutherford?
Great marbled piece of meat, ribeye, Wagyu beef, lamb, any other great, again, blue cheeses we were talking about earlier. Be well
And
with that as well.
grilling it would be fine, or pan frying would be fine. And, we haven't talked about pasta, but You know, I mean, I was weaned on pasta, and I think it's just a beautiful marriage with red wine,
Yeah.
with most red wines.
Bolognese, maybe a meat sauce.
Absolutely, yeah.
Sounds good. Carmen.
They're saying that the three of you are just fantastic and they're learning so much. They really have enjoyed this last one. We're getting a lot of positive praise for that and for the second one as well. They are saying, going back to the air issue, that they suggest now going back and tasting all three wines again. A lot of the people who are doing this at home. So, you know,
Great
that seemed to
idea.
That's a
be
great idea.
right in line
Yeah.
with what Susan was saying.
We've got a smart group
Absolutely.
of people who are weighing in on this tonight, because that is a fantastic idea. It's the same thing I think Jesse had said earlier, that when he
Yes.
decants a wine, he tastes it right away, and then he decants it. Whenever I decant, I always do that. And it's just a cool thing. You know, it doesn't mean you're going for some status or some snobbish aspect. You can really taste the difference in two different tastes of the same wine over even 30 minutes. I mean, it doesn't take that long.
Not at all.
All right. We had a question earlier from someone in the chat room saying, what other types of wine tastings could you hold with your friends? You know, we chose the 3 Cabernets tonight. I know we kind of talked about that. You know, it's really whatever you want to do. But, you know, what about the wines of Tuscany or something like that? Are there any ideas for people out there who've tuned in,
Sure.
maybe brand new to this, and are looking for some ideas to do
Well, I
with
mean,
some
there's a
friends?
few things. You touched on one where you can pick a region and then just get whatever wines are from that particular region. And there's countless regions throughout the world. And it's not just any country. I mean, like we've shown today, we're in one state in, roughly speaking, about 2 different regions, 2 to almost 3 different regions of California. The other thing is, a couple months ago, I did a side-by-side tasting, 2 different Zinfandels, Daché vineyards in California. Same winemaker, same year, same varietal, and they literally, the 2 vineyards were 10 minutes apart. These bottles looked identical, slight difference in the name because I had to say what vineyard specifically they're from, drastically different wines.
Wow.
You can do that. You can do what's called verticals, which is, and correct me on this, you guys know this, verticals is by year. And horizontally, in a perfect world, giant wall of wine, and horizontally would be the varietal. Do I have that right? Okay. So you can compare the same varietal in different years, or same years or different years. So you can, whatever your palate likes, you know, go for it. Your imagination is pretty much limitless.
All right, any other suggestions from
I
either of
think
you?
one of the best ways to taste is to do it blind.
That's good.
Oh, that's good.
we're on this.
And I
agree.
think that you learn so much. You have no preconceived notions.
Yeah.
And that's such a great point too, Susan. My wife and I like to do a brown bag tasting, a blind tasting every year, and we'll have a little table at the gate where people will bag their wine they bring. Have someone bring a red and a white wine,
Oh.
and then we have like rating charts. In the evening, we do a big reveal. But one point, we had 2 gentlemen that picked the exact same wine and same vintage, and they swore it was a different one. Different grape, different region. It was really interesting how what you're saying about blind, preconceived notions.
It's
And
very
pretty funny.
interesting.
And to that point, Susan did, several months ago, did a blind tasting at her store and bar, and set up the wines. We had them in order. There were 5 of them, and everybody had to guess the varietal. And it's amazing because not even close. I mean,
It's not
it was
easy
a
to do.
white
It's not
wine.
easy.
One tasted like a Chardonnay. A couple tasted like a Riesling. One tasted like a blend, and back and forth. And it turned out to be a Viognier. And if you've never had a Viognier, it's a very fruity white wine, medium-bodied, and it's kind of almost viscous. It's almost thick in a way, the way it feels in its mouthfeel, the way it feels on your tongue. But again, it may not be a grape you've ever had, but you know what? You find an affordable one, take a flyer on a $15, $18 bottle and give it a shot, or find someplace that's doing flights on that. But that was an eye-opening experience. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's really
even though I failed the
interesting.
test.
We had someone asking in here, can you really test, maybe even that way, can you taste the difference between the wines that we're having in this price point and a really expensive bottle of wine? You guys could probably taste the difference, but
Sometimes yes,
you know.
sometimes no.
Yeah, yes and no, it depends. Yeah, it depends on the vintage too, on the what kind of a year it was as well.
Good answer. And to a degree, it depends. We talked a lot about the weather and the terroir. It also depends on the winemaker.
Sure.
Most good wineries, if it's a good, well-known winery, it's got a good winemaker, pretty much.
all right, guys. Well, The time has flown by, and the people at the party have moved on because they're done with these wines to Pinot Noir. I'm not sure if that's advisable or not, but they're yes, they're done with the cabs.
That's good.
Simply because they're out of them. That's all the time we have. We really hope that you've enjoyed our wine tasting show, and we'd really like to hear what you have to say about it in the comments section below. Just let us know. That way the next time we do this, we can kind of tailor it for what you like or don't like about this. But thank you so much for joining us, and it's been really a pleasure, learned a lot, and really appreciate it. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
And on behalf of our panel, Marc Bona, Susan DeCarlo, and David Sterle, I'm Denise Polverine, and we can't forget Amanda Harnotes out in the field. She did a great job with the party there. So thanks so much for watching and participating, and have a good night.